Hi guys, welcome back to another weekly Assault. My name is Rybot01, Community Manager for World Tanks Console. And with me, I have the man, the legend, the doctor, Darold Higa, who's narrated this.
I like how you can't actually
Tanks.
finish that.
Yeah.
You break out laughing. Not that you're the only one that does that.
It cracks me up because every time I say doctor, you're like, she won't stop saying that. Who's clearly, like I mentioned before, drinking the blood of his enemies.
Yeah, wow.
Very interesting beverage right there.
This is actually tea, and it's blue.
It's naturally blue, believe it or not.
Blue. Yeah, it's really strange.
There's no colors, additives, sugars, or artificial sweeteners or anything like that.
It's herbal, which is unusual for me because usually I have to drink my caffeinated tea.
Is that how you get your superpowers?
Games are made on caffeine, either coffee or soda or tea.
I have to have like 3 cups of green tea a day.
We go through so much coffee. Didn't we have stats for that at some point? Like how much coffee?
Do we?
Like how many pots of coffee were required for development?
Oh my God, we should add that to the infographic at the end of the year.
We probably should. Like how much coffee did we consume?
How many cups were served in both floors 6 and 4th? Yeah, more stats, everyone. Anyway. Today Darold's going to be here answering all of your questions related to the game. So if you have questions about war stories or anything history related, it'll be your man. We are also thinking about a couple of fun ideas that we want to do in the future for video content. And internally, there was a suggestion for us to kind of talk about rations. And when I brought up that idea with Darold, he's like, oh, I know all these things because all of these rations, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, he knows a lot about this. So definitely would.
Yeah, I started collecting them really, weirdly. Like initially you start off, we're in the US, so you start off with American MREs and then you go, hey, but what do other countries eat? And then you start looking at all the other inventories. And then for a long time they were hard to get, but recently there's been a really big boom in like foreign ration collection. And so it's been a lot more available now. And so like I've been procuring like I have the French ones, the German ones, I have the Russian ones, I have the UK ones. I'm working on a couple other countries that I'd like to. I have a Canadian one. It's poutine, but they can't be fries. I'm told it's potatoes, but not fries, because I don't know how the hell that would work. But
that's gonna be so interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully, you'll stay tuned for that.
So yeah, if you have questions for Darold, please post them on chat. A lot of players are asking recently if we are going to have the KB2R, the one that was released on PC for console. Just from the get-go, we don't have any plans. We don't even have any contact with the IP and any legal paperwork that we need to do. So in order for us to do that, we have to talk to the PC people and then talk to our marketing and publishing teams to kind of get that going. So I mean, we haven't really started, so I don't think anytime soon would that happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a lag time, especially when it involves any kind of like external clearance. But in any case, it's still kind of a long process because we're although everyone says, oh, it's the same game, actually we have a different engine. So yes, we can use the same stats, but there's a lot of the mechanical parts of tanks that do need to be converted over, and that's just sort of a process. And especially 1.0 on the PC side, it's a very different beast, even from the older PC client. So there's a lot of conversion stuff that has to happen. So be patient.
Yes. Current events we have right now, we still have the Soviet Dream Machine event. I posted in the forums to please, share your stories and the amount of points that you guys have. Player actually is almost done collecting every single drop.
Wow.
So he's been playing a lot, obviously. So the first thing he started from top and then to the bottom. So he got Motherland and then he's going,
That's very good job, sir. That's a lot of dedication.
So please take advantage. The event ends on the 28th of May, which is this month, obviously. So this is your opportunity to get as much free stuff as you can. There is no limit. You can definitely just go in and cash all your points for one of each. And if you already own that tank, you're gonna get the silver equivalent for it. pretty good stuff.
Cool. I see we already have some questions. Could you scroll back up a little bit?
Yes.
I want to see who asked that question.
I think that was Justin Ray. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Justin Ray. Yeah. It was, what happened to the free XP, crew XP? That's an event.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the event, and it's not a permanent feature. Whenever we release it, it is because, one, we have an on-track event, or two, we released a large amount of tanks. You know, how we released the heavy German line, and we try to reserve that feature for when we do something like that, so it impacts your garage and it helps you out with your crew. I received so many comments and requests to make it permanent. I already escalated those to the production and design team, but for now there's really no answer of whether it's going to be permanent or not, so for now it's going to be temporary.
Yeah, there's a lot of economy things that we have to keep in balance. It's weird, but believe it or not, games like, you know, our game, other game companies and everything else, you actually have maybe not an economist in the traditional sense, but you basically have a game economist that has to look at all the currencies and make sure that we don't create an imbalance or create something that's kind of unfair for some players and things like that. It may not seem that way, but it's because it relates to other currencies as well, so we kind of have to, that's why it's not something we just turn on all the time. I think there's another question here. Kurt Rogers. Mm-hmm. Can we create a mass battle Stalingrad with Russian and German tanks? So it's an interesting, Stalingrad itself had an armored component, but it was largely an infantry fight. And because it was a city fight, you know, a lot of the action and a lot of the interesting kind of military stories usually, well, so there was the American movie, you know, Enemy at the Gates, and of course there was a really good German film also called Stalingrad, and I believe there was another, I cannot remember the name of the Russian film, but there's been several. I mean, obviously it was such a pivotal battle. I think that it's a great subject matter, so I won't say that we're not going to do something like that. I think the biggest problem, again, with a lot of these battles that were mostly infantry battles, it's a little bit tougher. I mean, obviously things like Kursk that were mostly armor battles are a little bit easier to reproduce. And also you don't necessarily, so the way that you can get around that, and this is more of a game designer thing or like a Chad Steingraber question, but like a lot of times what they can do is that we can set it in these historical battlefields so it's in the same location, but we turn it into an armor battle. Because a lot of times, you know, I mean, I say this all the time, like a really good Panzer commander or a Soviet armored commander or an American tank commander, their goal is to not, you know, in a lot of cases is to have an overwhelming advantage, and to get that sometimes you don't want to be fighting tank on tank. You know, and if you've ever watched any of like Chieftain videos, you know the whole thing about the American doctrine of tank destroyers and everything else, and how that's very different from tank on tank warfare.
Question from Joshua Woodcraft. When is the new data center being switched over? It already happened. You might have not noticed.
Yep.
It happened. It did not require a server restart. Literally, servers were merged and you are in it. So, yay.
Yeah, and it's a transitional process too, because we want to make sure as we're phasing, you know, as we're starting things up, is everything okay? Can it handle the load? I mean, it's not like we haven't had these servers before, but it's one of those things where we have to check the load balancing and everything else and make sure. So bit by bit, you'll see the transition being happening. And the thing about it is you won't know, if we do our job right, you actually won't notice. Oh, well, your ping times may change, but in general, you won't notice too much about it.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to talk a little bit about the server announcement. For all of you who don't know, we decided to combine some of the servers. So now we only have East and Europe on.
Yeah, and that's going to change
yes.
too, I think.
So the reason behind it, players were saying that it is because the amount of players is low, you know, coming down, that there's really not a lot of players in our servers. It has nothing to do with that. There is an understanding that we've been live for 4 years, and we definitely needed new technology, new servers to make sure that our players have the best experience. I really don't think there are many games out there that could say that they can use the same equipment and not make any upgrades or changes. I mean, if anything, this is gonna help you with your queue times and the matches that you get in game. So it is actually better. And a couple of players have pinged me saying that they feel the difference, not too much, but they feel it, and it is actually better. They have a better experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if anything, this is a good change, meaning that we definitely are looking forward to maybe 4 more years or even longer than that. So yeah, the change or the upgrade was certainly necessary and required. And the good thing about it is that they are in Chicago too. So the development studios are in Chicago.
Yep.
Now the servers are in Chicago as well. And that actually helps us to kind of monitor the health of the servers to make sure that everything is running.
And I can speak a little bit to this actually because I have experience at like other game companies too. The one thing about the more servers that you have distributed, it helps with ping a little bit. Not as much as you'd think sometimes. A lot of times it's more the ISP, because even if it's physically co-located closer to you, your ISP may still jump through a bunch of hoops to connect to it. So it's still kind of a lottery on that respect. That there's not much we can do about that. The other problem with having distributed servers, the more servers you have, the more time zone, the less time zones that are in a specific server. So you have a lot more ups and downs in your server traffic. So consolidating servers, what it allows you to do is even it out so that there's always a lot of people online, because when one country is asleep, another country is just waking up. And that's kind of, I know from a player point of view, maybe that doesn't sound like the optimal solution, but overall, keeping as many people on the servers as possible at once makes for faster match times, makes for more balanced matchmaking. There's a whole lot of other things that come from that. Anthony Maxwell, are any chance for more War Stories maps coming over to multiplayer? I can't talk about any of this, can I?
No.
That was the hint.
Well, when it comes to content, every update we're going to bring in new content. We're going to bring in new tanks, new maps. But I do have to say that players should prepare for the next 2-3 weeks, because it's going to be intense when it comes to features. And we have already hinted that we have a lot of stuff coming this year. And yeah, it's going to be...
Can't say anything.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that it's going to get interesting.
New tanks coming soon. Like
Yeah,
Irwin.
How do you pronounce the last name? Brayling?
Sorry, we're probably mispronouncing it.
We're watching your
Are there
last
new
name,
tanks
I'm so
coming
sorry.
soon, like Italian or French tanks? Yes. How do I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Yeah, there are more tanks coming. One thing that I will point out, and I know there's a lot of people say, well, there's still all these historical tanks out there. It does get tricky. In fact, I was just talking about the fact that on the PC side, I decided to take it out for a spin because I haven't played PC in a while, so I was playing the Italian line. And you do have the problem that some countries, the major armored nations have largely been covered, and what happens is that the reason why some of these other countries were not tackled earlier is because they may not necessarily have the full tier 1 through 10, or they may not have more than 1 or 2 tank types. Italy is an interesting country because if you think about it, they had a lot of tankettes, and then they had a few light tanks, and then they had like a P40, which was like a decent medium tank. But it's very difficult to fill out all the tiers in some countries. So I will say that the stuff's in the works, but I can't give details.
Dun, dun. I see people spam. I guess when I said new content is coming, players are posting like no more reskins. And you know what? I did address this in the forums. I know with the recent release of the Death Stalker, which is the M46 pattern, and I've seen a lot of them in matches because I was playing today for about an hour. I've seen a lot of them, and we release tanks, and obviously we have to release some premium tanks. Premium tanks do help the game's economy, and we would not be releasing so many of these tanks if they weren't being received by our players favorably. We wouldn't be posting the same content that's not doing well. That would absolutely make no sense. And it is thanks to the support for players who purchase stuff in game that we can, one, keep the game running, to make favorable changes, kind of like with the servers that we've done. 3, keeps the game free to play for everyone, even for people that do not make any purchases in game. So, you know, whoever purchases at Premium Tank, we are eternally thankful for all of your support. And if you don't, that's okay. But in reality, it helps us maintain the game free to play. So, and again, you can play the game without the need to purchase Premium Tank. So, but if you do, like I said, we thank you very, very much. Right.
And again, we always run into the issue of, well, you know, there were only so many tanks made. I do have to say that, like, you know, that were made in any quantity. And then, of course, you do also have speculative tanks, and you have paper tanks and all this other stuff, or blueprint tanks, I should say, or napkin tanks, I think some people call them. But, you know, this is one of those things where we have to get a kind of a balance between that. And there are some tanks that are more iconic and more popular. So, yes, you know, a lot of people say, well, that's just reskinning, but it's actually one of those things too, where these are tanks that are very, very popular and people want to collect them. So that's kind of what we're doing. And it's not going to appeal to everybody. And that's the whole point of a free-to-play game, is that it's not that everything out there is going to appeal to everybody, but everyone's contribution is important. And when I say that, I mean people who are just playing the game and they're not buying stuff, that's fine. You're an important contributor to our community too, because you're playing the game, you know, making sure that we have all these matches full, keeping the matchmaker full. Those are all important things to make sure that we have good battles.
Jared Robert Durbin, can you all hook me up for my birthday, May 19th? I don't know. We'll definitely we'll try to send you a special code just for you for your birthday. But now everyone's gonna hit me like it's my birthday too.
It was my birthday a long time ago. Can I get a code?
When was your birthday?
I'm not saying.
I remember buying you a cupcake at some point.
Yes, you did buy me a cupcake.
But that was last year. Now I failed at birthday for you this year.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's okay. I try to not make a big deal of it. I'm getting old.
Okay.
It's true.
Any chance to have the Adler as an earn-up? You know what? This comes from James Penrose. Like I said before, whenever we do an earn-up, it's literally planned months in advance. We have to update the game. We have to update marketing to make sure that they have all the news articles in place. And if we do a promotion with our first-party partners, Greg is posting stuff. Then we need to talk to them to make sure that if we have it in store, or or not in store, but make sure that they promote it on their channels. So this is a lot of players think that, hey, if tomorrow I feel like I want to put a ton of premiums up for sale, it is not that easy. We literally have to talk to 50, 60 people to make sure that things get done. Put them in game.
I think the way we talk about it, it makes it sound like it's an easy task, but actually, like just dealing with the Microsoft and Sony, our partners, that alone, we have people handling that. I mean, not just one person. We have people handling that relationship. So it's pretty complex.
And in different time zones, and they have different schedules too.
I mean, specifically to the console product. So I think this is specific to World of Tanks console. We are a global product in the sense that there are no we can't be regional. Like, in its nature, when we release something for one region, we pretty much have to make sure that we're releasing it in all regions. So that's kind of how it works for console. You can make the argument that yes, you can do segment marketing per region on console. It's actually very, very difficult. And for us, on the development side, it's much easier to develop for everybody at once, but that means getting more clearances. So there's always a long lead time for this kind of stuff.
Juan Sanchez, frontline. He's talking about World Tanks PC Frontline. We're not considering it at this time. I believe that was answered in one of the Battle Heroes Q&A, so check them out on our portal. Players have been asking about that nonstop, and I wish I could say like, hey, yes, we're doing it, but as of right now, we are not even thinking about it. Again, we have a lot of content coming in the next couple weeks, so that's literally our focus right now.
Yeah, and that was actually a lot. You know, it's interesting too because this was a big. Oh, see, I can't even talk. It was a lot of effort. There's something we're working on. I promise. I promise.
Elmer Rogan, what's the next big event coming up? We just literally talk about this.
Oh, I wish we could talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, I think someone's asking for the Back in Black tanks. And Stephen Kuhn answered, dude, Pingot said no, in caps, to the black tanks. Yeah, I think they ask us almost every weekly Assault stream.
I hear about it all the time.
All the time.
And not even just in the streams. I mean, people are talking about it.
But you know what? The people that ping me in the forums to ask for the black tanks are tank collectors. Mm-hmm. And they are literally begging and asking, look, these are the only ones that I'm missing. Please do something about it. And those are the times that I talk to Paint God and I'm like, hey, you know, what can we do? And he's still like, no, I don't know.
It's because we set that up in such a way where that was a, you know, a special edition. But I mean, this is something that has to be worked out somehow.
Well, from your point of view, you are a collector of sort of lots of things.
Yes. Oh yeah.
If you knew you were missing the tanks,
it would drive me insane.
Okay, there you go. So I'm going to escalate this with Paint God.
I am a compulsive collector. Like, I collect figures. And people laugh because when a figure doesn't show up at the office, they're like, what happened? And then, like, I've actually run out of display space, so I've been actually trying not to buy figures. And the figures keep showing up. Well, see, the thing is that you order these figures so far in advance that I said, since January, I've really slowed down on my figure purchases, and everyone laughs because I say that, and then I get the call saying, "Oh, you have 2 more packages up front." It's because
it's a pre-order.
Yeah, it's a pre-order. Yeah. There's a lag time of about a year, so for the next year, I'm still going to be getting a lot of figures.
Aaron Meyer said, "Daryl, yay!" That was it.
Oh, okay. Well, yay back. I'm not sure if there's a question, but cool.
Jason Catrone, can we get universal camo and custom all-season skins? That's an interesting idea, but we don't have the UI support for it. If you're talking about customization of camo, like World Tanks PC currently has right now.
Yeah, and if you're talking about one that is like applies to all seasons, that's also a little bit tricky. That would actually require some engineering work, believe it or not, just because this is not like flipping a switch. Can we get the original version of Scorpion Pass back?
Ooh, actually, Chad Steinriver answered that in a Q&A we recently recorded. I think it was 2 days ago. And it's going to be posted on YouTube, so make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to the World Tanks Console channel, which is What Console. And he has that answer for you. And he's going to talk about why we can't have Scorpio Pass, the original old version, you know, the one that was completely out of control big.
Yeah, there was some technical limitations to that we didn't quite understand it. Well, I guess we did understand at the time, but it turned out to be a bigger problem than we thought. So, yeah, but it's one of those things where, you know, never fear. These things will find its way back. It's just sometimes it requires some re-engineering. So, and definitely the person to talk to about that is Chad. So, definitely look for that video.
Aaron Meyer, can we get more artillery action and war stories? All right. Next question is like...
Don't ask me questions that I can't answer.
You're answering with your silence.
Oh. Yeah, well, I guess that's true.
He's like, maybe yes,
my blue tea.
Maybe not. Oh, I guess people are asking about, oh, Daryl is drinking blue juice. Valerie McCracken, oh, lady, oh. She's, we said it earlier in the stream that it was the blood of his enemies. He's almost out.
I'm not sure why the blood of my enemies is blue, but okay.
Hey, you're out of this world, Daryl.
Okay.
I guess it's time to give away codes.
Ooh, okay.
Should we relate giving away codes based on a tank or your beverage?
my beverage.
Oh, this is a struggle now for you.
This feels very untank-like, though. I feel like maybe a tank is more appropriate.
Okay, go for it.
Let me think now. Favorite French tank?
Ooh.
Since that subject came up.
The Amex boy. Type in chat your favorite French tank. That was actually, you know, we really don't ask a lot about the French tech tree, and I feel like even though it has a lot of tanks, it's really not, you know.
So it's interesting because I think, and I don't know if this is so like because we're in the States, we hear more like from people who are in the U.S. There's a lot of misunderstandings about like I think some of the French military, and it's one of those weird things. They always make jokes about it and everything else, but French tanks in the early, so this is, you can tell my bias because I tend to talk about early war as opposed to late war. Early war French tanks were actually pretty darn good. The biggest problem that they had is that they had a doctrine problem. And this is a question of like how the tanks were deployed and how they were organized. So, in the interwar period, oh God, I just turned into professor mode, sorry.
No,
in the interwar period, after World War I and before World War II, there was a big debate as to how armor would be used. And predominantly, tanks were designed as infantry support, which is a carryover from World War I. World War I was horrible with trench warfare. It was infantry would die under miserable conditions, and the idea of the tank was a mobile pillbox. And so, of course, especially if you played in the, in our Mark I event and all this other stuff, you get that sense that these were meant to be mobile pillboxes, and that's kind of where how tanks began. And that's why those tanks are considered infantry support weapons. So a lot of tank doctrine was kind of focused on making infantry support weapons. The French, the British, largely focused on infantry support, not wanting to go through the horrendous trench warfare of World War I. And so because of that, they were actually designed with guns that were more meant to, this is kind of morbid, but more meant to kill infantry as opposed to kill other tanks. Germany had a different route, though. First of all, it was under the Treaty of Versailles, so they had a lot of. Oh wait, do we have a winner before?
No, keep going. Tim Morgan did comment and said that French tanks didn't have good radios, which was a bad thing.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely, and that's actually part of the doctrine. This is what I guess I'm going to get at here, is that a lot of them were meant to be infantry support weapons. And so as a result, they were not meant to operate independently. The thing that the Germans did that was quite an innovation was the idea that they were, if you think about it, especially Battle of France, that's a really good example, right? Battle of France was being fought with predominantly Panzer, I think they still had Panzer Is, although that was mostly Battle of Poland, but like Panzer IIs, Panzer IIIs, and a handful of Panzer IVs. And if you compare that to the French tanks, that's actually the Panzer IV, of course, the later iterations of it are pretty great, but the early iterations of the Panzer IV and the Panzer III and everything else, it's not that on a per tank basis these were like so amazingly ahead of the French. What it was is that there was a fundamental doctrine difference. Concentration of tanks, using tanks to break through enemy lines and using them to kind of go into the rear areas and cause disruption. This is blitzkrieg, right? And the continental doctrine, or the doctrine that was being used, I shouldn't say continental because the British too, was more of the infantry support. So as a result, they were dispersed. They were not concentrated into armored units. They were kind of assigned to infantry units. And so, there were tanks all along the front, but they were never concentrated. They were meant to be backup infantry, take out pillboxes. This whole notion of fighting the last war, I think that's kind of what informed the sort of tanks as infantry support weapons in the interwar period. I actually did a paper on this when I thought I was going to become a history major. That was really funny. Everyone thought, what a weird topic you're doing it on, but it was basically on this whole doctrinal thing.
Dun, dun.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. I get carried away.
Simon Jackson. No disrespect, but is this a history lesson?
Sorry.
Of course. Hey, our game is based on history. This is not someone told us. No, this is history.
Sorry.
I definitely
I get carried away. But yeah.
No, this is fine. People love hearing
yeah,
about
and
this.
like I said, that's why you will see the. I mean, and this is actually explains some of the differences that you have in a lot of these tanks, because that's why some tanks seem much better at tank-to-tank warfare. It's because they were designed for tank-to-tank warfare, and as World War II progressed, everyone realized, oh, we need to focus on tank killing. In fact, the Panzer III, Panzer IV line, even on Germany's side, Panzer III was meant to be the anti-tank tank, and the Panzer IV was meant to be the infantry support tank. But then they eventually upgunned the Panzer IV so that it became an anti-tank tank. Anti-tank tank. Well, whatever. I mean, so they basically engaged in tank-to-tank warfare.
That's pretty good. I mean, we need to do segments about this, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd love to.
Oh.
I can talk ad nauseam.
Done. We're gonna do segments about it.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, this is great. If anything, your fans bag player that says like, I love his mind.
Oh God. Yeah. Well. Thank you.
We have 4 winners, and
Awesome.
the winners are George Smith, Ed Munoz, Dana Dawson II, and Samuel Hudson. And all of you are gonna walk away with 14 days of premium.
Ooh, cool.
That's pretty cool. So again, I'm gonna repeat, it's George Smith, Ed Munoz, Dana Dawson II, and Samuel Hudson. Please message me your gamer tag, and we will definitely credit your premium time the moment we receive your gamer tag. So yay! Thank you so much. Yeah, for participating. We'll give away more codes. But there was another question before that. Is the question gone? Okay. Justin Ray. Rybud, what happened to platooning with the community? I've been doing it. I did it this week, yesterday actually. I was playing on Xbox. Next week is PlayStation 4. So if you feel like you want to platoon, hop in. It's going to be on Twitch, 12:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's so much fun. Yesterday, I got to platoon with Hazeman 010. Miss Sunshine, and DWP 1992.
You have really good memory.
Well, 2 of them are community contributors for World Tanks Console. They're really nice. Shout out to them, and shout out to all of our community contributors. They're awesome. Jason Billington, hi, could you give a shout out to my buddy Mike Oxlong? It's his birthday, 22nd.
Ooh, happy birthday.
22 years. Happy birthday. Do we have like a happy birthday tank song?
No. Happy birthday tank song. That's something we might want to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'll do some research.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
You're going to research that. That's awesome. Patrick Joes Sheedy. I will love to just sit and talk tanks with you all day, Daryl. See, this is what I'm talking about. Whenever Daryl talks, it's like everyone listens. And sometimes I'm like...
but I'm going to say that I'm not...
so interesting.
I'm more... how do I put this? I like to focus on like the doctrine and tactics and stuff like that. So I'm not always focused on like specific tanks. So you can ask me questions about specific tanks and I might not have a good answer. But if it's about like sort of like more of the history and the tactics and strategy, that's kind of what I was in. It was really fascinating kind of studying some of this stuff, because when you come at it from the tank angle, you're like, why the hell was the tank? Why the hell did the tank behave this way? Or why did they make the tank this way? But then when you hear about like what doctrine that was trying to serve, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I mean, when in the infancy of armored warfare, no one really knew how they were going to work, and the idea that the tank on tank battles wasn't the initial thought, and the idea that and then that was turned into a doctrine and it became so successful. That's what changed it.
From all the years of your research, was there something that, I mean, you've been studying for years and years, and that is something that you're focusing on, but was there something that you particularly found interesting that you were like, I didn't know?
Yeah, and actually, this is one of those things. This is why there was a series on industrial production. That's something scary, but anyway, it was on like the different ways that the tanks were being produced in terms of design philosophy, right? Because the 2 tanks that, of course, that are always mentioned when they talk about numbers produced is the Sherman versus the T-34, right? That was, this is a classic example. And a friend recently gave me some links to there was a history seminar about discussing the production strategies. And one of the fascinating things about the production strategy for the T-34 is that, these are factories that they literally had to, because of the threat of the invasions from Nazi Germany, that the Soviet Union basically lifted whole tank factories, put them on rail, and moved them across the Urals so that they would be safe. And yet they were still able to maintain that high rate of tank production. And so what they would do is that they knew what the average lifetime of a tank was going to be on the battlefield, and they designed the tank to work that plus, like around that time period. Whereas like an American tank, like a Sherman, was built like a Detroit car. So it was meant to be very, very reliable. Like it will always start right off the bat, very easy to handle and everything else. And that was two really different contrasting strategies. They both worked, obviously. The Germans took another strategy, which was we are going to try to engineer the best possible vehicle for given the circumstances and the conditions. So then you get these crazy tanks like the one I always love mentioning, which is the Tiger, the Porsche Tiger, which was going to have a hybrid electric drive system. I drive a Prius, so that's why I find it amazing that in the 40s they were basically going to make a hybrid electric tank, right? But the problem with that is that the engineering time required and the manufacturing, the level of manufacturing sophistication required to build these tanks meant you can't build them in numbers. So you see these really different competing industrial strategies. Yes, we can talk about armor thickness and we can talk about turrets, and gun sizes and everything else, but there's also this industrial aspect where they took different strategies and that had really, really big implications.
Quality versus quantity.
Quality versus quantity.
My
and
gosh.
even in quantity, how do you make that quantity, right?
Yeah.
Do you make it a reliable Detroit type car, or do you make something that will last as long as it needs to last in the battlefield, and when it wears out or when it breaks down, bring a new one onto the battlefield?
And then they were in excruciating timelines. I mean, time was an issue
I mean, a modern weapon system takes decades to deploy. They were changing weapon systems in months. And that's something to think about, right? Because we always talk about World War II and everything else and talk about this huge progression. I mean, you look at a start of the war tank and you look at the end of the war tank, it's almost like, like science fiction at the end of the tank. And that was just a matter of 3 or 4 years. I mean, you can't even, cars don't change that much.
They haven't really in the past 15 years. The only thing is the hybrid car, but that's about it.
So was the Panzer IV-H effective with anti-tank operations? This is Zach Ichijo against the Allied Shermans. Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So, the Panzer IVs, I think in general, I don't have that historical data on me, but the thing about the Panzer IVs is that they were the most reliable aspect of sort of German armor. Everyone always talks about the Panthers, and everyone always talks about the Tigers.
True.
The thing about it is that when you read the memoirs of German armor commanders, what they said is, although those tanks were super weapons, only a third of them would be fieldable at once. Well, the Panthers got much more mechanically reliable, but you talk about Kursk or something like that, they were just notorious for just breaking down. And the Tigers were such complicated machines that they had a hard time keeping them afloat. So the Panzer IVs were actually extremely effective. You also have the historical element in here where a lot of times historical kill numbers and all this other stuff are subject to some reinterpretation in, sort of like the revisionist history, because what they discovered is that a lot of American tank crews were misidentifying, Panzer IVs as Tigers. And so sometimes it's like every German tank that they engaged was a Tiger and stuff like that. Oh,
no,
okay.
What happened? All I know is that Jeff Gregg, lead game designer, walked in and then he left this paper. What does this mean?
I don't know what that means.
Tank Lore Lord.
Oh, is that for me?
I don't know. Is that you?
Oh, hey, there's a question about that. I think you need to adjust that.
Oh, I wanted to keep going. You were talking very interesting stuff. Mike Scrafton.
Yeah, Scrafton.
Ryba, did anybody get you with the arty? Okay, so this happened last week. Chuji, Jeff Gregg, lead game designer for World Tanks console, he put a bounty on my head. So literally, whenever I play, I'm always on Xbox, the East server. If you destroy me with an artillery shot, which I hate, he's going to give you something very special. He's going to credit your account. All you have to do is proof that you took me out with an artillery tank. I played on Thursday for 2 hours, and I played Friday for 2. I played Saturday for 2 and Sunday for 1 hour. And I've been playing literally almost every day for a decent amount of time. No one has actually claimed the prize. So that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
I don't know. He mentioned that he was going to credit a ton of silver, a ton of premium, and premium tanks. Not tanks. Whoever proves to have me destroyed.
I think the first person to prove it, right?
Yeah,
I think it was something like that.
I don't know. Actually, 2 people did it, but I don't think they were aware of the event. It's not an event. It's mean. I want to play. I don't want to be hounded,
Well, artillery is going to hound you no matter what.
Well, yeah, that's true. I was playing earlier today, and one of them took me out. I was playing the Stark. Oh, did I rage? And I had the door open. I forgot that I had it open. So I started cursing like hell. I was like,
everyone is
I'm sorry. Like, I had to peek out and be like, I'm sorry for yelling. Aaron Meyer, I killed her. No, you did not. Where's the proof? Proof is in the pudding. Send me a photo or a replay. So there we are.
Yeah, that's what the replay system's for. Do you want to read the next one?
Jason Catron, any chance of have a contest for user-generated content? Are you talking about replays, or are you talking about reviews?
You guys have some screen caps. You guys have a few of those.
We have a contest, actually 2 contests in the forums. One of them, it's called the Sevaton. No, the one that we have right now is I Believe I Can Fly, meaning you have to use the replay system and take a photo of the tank flying. So it's probably off a cliff. They have sent really amazing submissions.
I know, but it's going to irritate their teammates no end. But okay, anyway.
So that's the contest. It's 1 entry per player.
Do it in team training, please.
I asked for it to be on multiplayer because it has to be in action.
Oh,
so it can't be staged.
Okay.
Because then...
Okay, well, I get it.
All you're going to get is tanks flying off the Westfield Bridge.
Don't needlessly jump off of... Don't needlessly jump. It's going to just cause people to not like you.
You're going to get the angry messages.
You're going to get the angry messages.
Yeah, so you have until May 30th or 31st, 12 p.m. Central Time to put your submission. You can do it in the forums or in Twitter. We actually pinned that tweet, so make sure you go there. And then the second contest is for you to give you a chance to win a Sabaton autograph poster and the Primo Victoria tank.
Oh, wow.
And we're asking for players who want to participate to submit a photo of either using a Swedish tank with 5 kills or more, or the other screenshot can be using a Swedish tank to have more than 5k of damage. So it can be light, medium, whatever Swedish tank you want to use, but it's, I have received maybe about 20 submissions, and I've just released a contest early this week.
Cool.
So yeah, lots of players. Yeah, a couple of them messaged me saying that they just got Swedish tanks just for that.
Well, it's an interesting line to play. So
yeah, it really is.
Especially once you get up to those, the TDs.
Yeah, siege mode for the win.
Siege mode, yeah. I was going to say, maybe. So, in other words, for them to do that, it's all in the forums, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
make sure you post your image in the forums, and if you don't have access to the forums or you don't know how to manage the forums, because it can be tricky sometimes if you are a first-time user. Send it on Twitter. I am in charge of Twitter, so if you send me a message, I'll take a look and add it to the pool. What's the next question? Erwin Brylink?
Yeah.
When do we get new ranked battles? That I don't know. I haven't really looked at the roadmap for ranked battles.
Yeah, We do them on occasion.
Yeah.
We can't do them all the time.
Right.
And then we've been kind of tweaking it, but I think we've gotten to the point where we're pretty happy with it. So I guess I have to look at when the next stage is for that one. But just stay tuned, because we're definitely going to keep doing them. That's not going away.
Paul Gibson, Daryl, spot on with your history and analysis of tanks. I too love history, manufacture, and tactics across history of tanks, and 50 books in total.
Wow.
I have been playing World of Tanks on the Xbox for 4 years now. Keep up the good work. Thumbs up, Gib007.
My thumbs up to you too, sir. You know,
That's really nice.
That's cool. Yeah, 50 books. Wow. Okay, that's more
Did he
hardcore. Yeah, I was
outbook you?
like, yeah, he outbooks me. So, yeah, good job, sir.
You got
good job.
outbooked.
Yeah, I got outbooked.
I think it's time to give away more codes. What do you think?
Yes.
So, what do you want to get?
Since we've been talking about some of these, okay. Oh, here's an interesting one.
Ooh.
What is your favorite Japanese tank?
STB-1. Well, I'm not participating, but there you go. Your favorite Japanese tank.
Yeah, favorite Japanese tank.
Type it in chat, and you're going to enter. It's going to be random for an opportunity to win 7 days of premium.
Yeah, actually, Japanese tanks are also an interesting historical thing, too.
There are not that many, though. Okay.
No, because, I mean, and it touches on some very touchy historical things, too. But I will say that because Japan was at war much earlier than the other powers, they went through their era of tank. They started their era of tank development a bit early, and their cycle was a little bit earlier because of basically incursions in China and everything else. But because of that, they actually were starting to go through the evolution of their tank design a little bit before the Europeans, just because they were already involved in combat from like the early 30s. But that being said, they really didn't come up against an armored power until they faced the Soviets, and the Soviets totally destroyed them, right? This is Kalkin Gol. This is, we actually have a map now for this, right? These big, I mean, people don't actually talk about all of these the big Soviet Japanese armored battles. I'm not talking about Russo-Japanese War, of course. I'm talking about World War II, just prior to World War II. But the result of those armored battles was, first of all, I think the Soviets also proved kind of like their ability in armored warfare, and the fact that the Japanese were so soundly trounced also meant that they kind of respected the subsequent non-aggression pact. And a lot of people, and I've seen historical arguments for this, cite that fact as the reason why the defense of Moscow was possible, because basically what they did is that because they knew that the Japanese were not going to attack, that allowed them to release a bunch of armored units that were the Siberian armored units, which came in defense of the Moscow defense lines. And so that helped, in terms of the defense there. That one I've only read a little bit on, so I'm not 100% sure on. But that's not something that in English language is covered a lot.
You know so much, like just a little bit, and they're like, "Whoa!"
Well, I'm just saying that's not something that's not a battle that's covered much in English literature, and that's the cool thing about wargaming. We get to care about stuff like that. I'm not trying to put down anyone who works at some of the other game companies, but it's like, our company gives us says, we want to be informed about these things. It's okay to use these things in your battles. It doesn't have to be Normandy 50,000 times. And not that Normandy isn't an interesting battle, but there are so many more interesting stories out there.
Yeah, another time that you come back, we should definitely talk about wargaming's initiatives to preserve history too, because we've worked with so many museums, and we've helped in the restoration of tanks. There's lots of tanks around the globe.
Two weekends ago, I was in New York, and I said, I hadn't been to the Intrepid, because every time I go to New York, I'm only there for a short period of time, and I never really get to sightsee. So I said, I'm going to go to the Intrepid, and I bought my ticket, and it goes, it had wargaming on the ticket. I go, I wonder if I could have gotten a discount. But, because
here's my business card.
Yeah, because that's a worship. That was a worships initiative, but that's one of those things that our company does.
Awesome. I think we have the name of the 4 winners.
Oh, cool.
First winner, again, 14 days of premium. And if I say your name, message me on the World of Tanks console Facebook. So send me your gamer tag and I'll credit you the 14 days of premium. The first winner is Johnny Roman. Second winner, Joe Kaufman. Third winner, Mark Gaza. And fourth winner is Danny Addison.
Congratulations. Yay.
Cool. Again, send me your gamer tag. And you win 14 days of premium.
And Adam Hogue, Japanese arty line. Oh, Japanese arty.
Did they even have?
They had some arty, but not. I don't think it's enough for a line. I mean, this is one of those historical things.
It doesn't have to be enough for a line. I mean, we've done adjustments where we kind of like at the boop.
You know what?
One thing.
You send that one to.
Oh.
You got to send that to Leo because I don't know. And the other problem too is that a lot of this arty wasn't really like self-propelled. A lot of it was still towed, so that's a tricky one. It's not that the Japanese didn't have arty, but you know, I mean, Japanese had a lot of weird weapons too. Like they had hopper bin stripper clip machine guns. So if you know guns, that's a really weird way. So they basically, you know, so stripper clips are when your ammo are on a piece of metal, right? And you put each stripper clip, and the stripper clip loads a gun. They had a machine gun where you had a hopper full of those stripper clips. Not too mechanically reliable, but anyway.
What would happen if it gets stuck? That's it? Are you serious? Oh.
Yeah, well.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of interesting weapons out there that...
Quality versus quantity.
Well, no, what happened was,
again.
my understanding is the reason why they did that is to relieve their logistics problems because they could share that with their infantry. So then, you know, the infantry who were using stripper clips to load their rifles, the machine gunner can use that same ammo. They solve their logistics problems. I mean, this is one of those things where it sounds good on paper, and then when they actually implement it, you go, no, this is a terrible idea.
Not like so much.
Oh, never done that myself. Or in game development, no, not at all. But yeah, I mean, that happens all the time.
Daryl, favorite map?
Oh, God. Map. You know, it's weird because I like some of the maps that are not that popular. Like, I like Prorovka.
I like that one, too.
I
think it's popular, no?
Yeah, well, you know, the one that I like that used to be really not very popular is Malnovka, but I actually like Malnovka, too. That one is, once they changed the spawns and moved some of the buildings around, that really helped a lot.
Richard Hughes, Darold Higa, you know your stuff. Yeah, you do know your stuff.
Well, you know, I try, but
you try what?
Well,
you're not trying right now. I want to see ultimate Darold Higa form.
Well, what I mean is that like I'm not like it's not like I spent my life studying this stuff, so it's just it's stuff I like.
James Wolfie, come back to D-Day and bring Daryl, Jeff, and Max with you. The recreation of D-Day in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Canute. It was exciting. It was really interesting. I was very conflicted because it's a reenactment, but there were parts of the reenactment that I just could not watch because you're watching something that did happen, and to me that was very, I don't know, I felt very sad. There were times that I felt sad, but I understand, you know, the need to kind of recreate so we do know, or we don't forget. And I get that, but yeah, there were times where I was sad about it.
I have friends who are reenactors, and it's an interesting tension. But the whole thing is, the point of it is, and I understand the motivation behind it, is you're trying to keep history alive. I actually like those kind of events. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay.
But I mean, it's really interesting.
I liked it too. I mean, everything was really nice. People were there, and I met so many veterans. It was you know, much respect. It was great.
It's an interesting, and you know, it's interesting. A lot of those events. I mean, the sophistication of the events nowadays, because people have tanks in their private collection and things like that. They're just getting fancier and fancier. You know, I went to one a couple of years ago where they had aircraft flying air support, and then they had armored vehicles driving around and everything else. It was really amazing. So I guess that's something that events can look at.
Yeah, Daryl, yay! that was said on the line. It's Aaron Meyer, Daryl, yay.
Yay!
Yay! Anthony Maxwell, hey, where do I send the flying tank and Swedish tank photos? You can use either Twitter or the forums. If you use the forums, there's a section under contest. and you should have the post there. And if you don't have forms, make sure you go to Twitter and send them in a message, and I'll receive them gladly and put them in the submission poll.
Cool.
We are out of time, so. Well, you and I, we're going to be back
so
very
I really
soon.
do enjoy sitting here just kind of talking about this kind of stuff. It is kind of a hobby of mine, so this is actually doesn't feel like work at all. This is really a lot of fun.
We're going to keep bringing you, and we're going to be working a lot of unique content. No, you're not. You're not boring. You're awesome. Recaps. Don't forget, Soviet Dream Machines event is still happening. Make sure you gather those points and redeem them before the event is over.
Oh, yeah, I got to...
You have points you're not redeeming?
Yeah, I forgot about that. I better do that.
Damn,
See? See? This is what you got to do.
Oh yeah, don't forget that we have the contest, as we mentioned. You can win a Sabaton poster autographed by, of course, the band. They were here at the office, and it was awesome.
Oh, that was amazing.
And the prize also comes with a Primo Victoria tank, so that's pretty cool. And if you don't have a Swedish tank to participate on that contest, we have the other one, which is called I Believe I Can Fly. And rules are simple. Using the replay system, send us an image of your tank flying.
And put it to good use. You know, make sure that you basically Goomba stomp somebody or something.
Yeah, that's good point.
Other team.
Yeah,
the red guys.
Not your
guys.
team.
The
other
red
teams.
guys.
The red ones. The red ones. So I guess we're signing out. Oh, I forgot. I've been doing this in my lunchtime. There's this mini series called Tank Versus.
They are cute.
Yeah.
I actually do get a kick out of them.
It's a remote control tank that we have here at the studio, and I'm literally putting the tank against things. A couple days ago, it was a cup of goldfish crackers. And I just finished the video of Tank versus Marshmallow Peeps. I'm going to keep doing this in my lunch because I'm actually having fun doing it. So I hope you like it. We're going to sign out with that video. If you do like it, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, World Tanks Console, and like it because it's fun. Daryl, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you
guys.
next week.
Bye.